உலகெங்கும் தமிழரின் பிம்பம் உங்கள் டிவி.
Welcome to CrossRoads on TVI. I'm your host, Manjula Salvaraja. Today we'll hear from Andrea Horwath, the leader of Ontario's NDP, local artist Kira Ratnam, and children's book author and Tristar Absalom. Let's start at Queen's Park. Andrea Horwath is the leader of the Ontario New Democratic Party. She has been a community organizer, city councillor, and an MPP in Hamilton, Ontario, and is the first woman to lead the Ontario NDP. She sat down with us to talk about the budget, the declaration of Tamil Heritage Month, and women in politics, amongst other things. Here's that interview. For sitting with us today.
My pleasure.
So the first question that I have for you is about stuff that's happening with Alison Redford. You know, we had a point in Canada recently where we had 6 territorial and provincial leaders. And
who were women.
Yes, who were women, and that number's now been going down. So CBC asked this really interesting question of people, of politicians. Did you think sexism played a part in her downfall? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, I know that's something that's being suggested, but I have to say, I mean, I think the people of Alberta decided that the expenditure problems that she was showing or engaging in were not tolerable, and that created pressure. And I think that kind of pressure comes with everyone. I mean, we're having that kind of pressure here in Ontario with the gas plant scandals and e-health and Orange Air Ambulance and all of those other things. And I think that kind of pressure has happened around the Senate, federally, with the senators who are conservative and some liberal. And so, I think that overall, the people of Canada, the people of the various provinces, the people of Ontario want to see people respect their tax dollar. They want people to respect the money that they send to the various orders of government, and they want them to focus on their priorities. So when these scandals start to unfold, pressure mounts fairly quickly. And if there's already internal problems within the caucus, which was apparently the case that was happening in Alberta, then that only leads to a quicker, I think, resolution in terms of the decision to resign. And so I don't know how Ms. Redford took that, how she felt about it, and I think that's the most important thing. I mean, we can all talk about whether there was sexism or there wasn't. The only person that really knows for sure whether she was feeling like this pressure was greater because she was a woman is the woman herself, and we need to respect her analysis, and I don't know that she's given one at this point in time.
I don't believe so, or she hasn't at least indicated that.
Absolutely, and it might be something that comes with some time, if she does a little bit of retrospection around this series of events. But I think the most respectful thing to do is to allow Ms. Redford to speak to her sense of what was happening there.
Now, you have a lot going on in your life. You're a mother. You have a caucus here you have to look after. You have your position here. And you also have constituents in Hamilton. How do you balance all of this? I say it's not a job, it's a lifestyle, that's for sure. And balance is the right word. I mean, sometimes it gets very, very, very busy. And when it does, I phone my son. He never answers, but he'll text me back right away. And that's okay. I mean, we've found ways to stay in touch. He's in college now, so he's not even in Hamilton. He's in London, Ontario, at college. And I'm here in Toronto many, many days of the week. In fact, sometimes weeks on end without getting home to Hamilton. But we do find the ways to connect, which is, it helps me in terms of, my grounding, but it helps him too in his struggles through college. It's always a challenge. And so, if there's one thing I think that I miss the most is my capacity, or not my capacity, but my ability to get back to my home riding of Hamilton Centre, because that riding it gave me my passion. The people in that riding have supported me for many, many years as a city councillor first, and now as an MPP and as leader. And I really do get my motivation and my passion from them. They started me in politics and they supported me all the way along. And so I miss my hometown. I miss getting to my hometown often enough. But having said that, I've just been there on the weekend, and so I got recharged and ready to go.
And ready to go into things. Do you think that it's actually, politics is a tough trade for women?
I do, because of the kinds of things that have to be balanced off in terms of family, and and as a woman of the age that I am, I have a grown son who's, as I said, going to college. I also have a mother who's having some health problems, and so many people in my age bracket experience that. They call us the sandwich generation,
sandwich
right?
generation,
So we're dealing with our kids as well as our parents, sometimes grandkids as well. I'm not in that position yet, and that'll be up to my son as to whether I get there. But it's tough, and I think it's interesting because it's still the case that women tend to be jugglers of more things in everyday life. I mean, they tend to juggle the doctor's appointments for the kids. They tend to juggle the household responsibilities, or at least the organizing of the household responsibilities, if not all of the household responsibilities, as well as work, as well as often volunteer work in community or in faith organizations and in various types of worship. And so, it's often a woman that carries all those balls at once. So in one way, as a woman, I'm well trained for the number of balls I have to keep in the air. But on another, it's true. It is adding this intensity of lifestyle that comes with politics is tough. And you know what? When I talk to women about this work or this calling or whatever we want to call it, I'm very honest about that. I mean, people need to understand the hardship that it causes, and I don't mean that in a way to say, well, politicians should be felt sorry for. Not at all. But it's an all-encompassing role, and it's something you have to be well aware of if you're going to get into it, because it really does change your life in a very significant way. But on the other hand, very rewarding. You can do it with integrity and thoughtfulness. You can actually achieve things that make life better for people. And so there's lots and lots of positives. And let's face it, I mean, we're in a situation in this economy where folks can't find decent work, where they have good skills, lots of training, but they can't find a decent job. And if there's one thing I can say as a woman, it's a salary that's very, very generous. And so where I don't have to worry about things, for example, when my son was younger, I didn't have to worry about whether I could find childcare for him or not, because I had a decent salary. Lots of moms are not in that place. In fact, we see lots of parents scrambling to find childcare for their kids, and they can't find affordable licensed childcare, and we see what happens. Tragedies occur when folks have to find solutions that aren't optimal.
Now, yesterday was obviously a very big day for the Tamil community here.
Yes.
Tamil Heritage Month has been proclaimed now, given assent.
Royal assent.
Your caucus was actually instrumental in that as well. Speak to us about what it meant to you and your caucus.
Well, this is something we've supported since it first came up as an opportunity. I think back in 2011, we were talking about the Tamil Heritage Month and bringing that forward. It came forward formally, I think, in 2012. I was the only party leader at the time to full-heartedly support it. We have a president of our party named Nathan Shan. You might know Nathan. He's from the Tamil community, and he's been very active with the community, very well respected. He's been instrumental with our party in terms of opening it up to far more participation by Tamil Canadians, which has been a fantastic addition to our growth and to our success. We've had the first MP elected, Rathika Sitsabasin, which is fantastic. We're really proud of Rathika as well. But for us, it's the Tamil Heritage Month proclamation and the role that we played in making sure that happened. For us, it's about acknowledging the horrifying things that have happened back home in Sri Lanka to the Tamils and to the people here in Ontario whose family, in some cases, still are in Sri Lanka, and whose history of generations has been of violence and oppression, and that is something that is not tolerable. And so, for us to be able to acknowledge the hurt, the pain, and the continuous strife that still exists in Sri Lanka around the whole Tamil issue is something that that we're proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with Tamil Canadians to say this is wrong. This has been a devastation to you as a people, and we're going to take a pause every January to think about exactly what the Tamil community has gone through, what Tamils are still going through, and what historically they've been through in Sri Lanka.
Now, going to another bend, thank you, by the way, and I know the community members would feel that way as well. Going to another bend here, you have been named by pundits as the key to the spring election, if we're going to have a spring election in Ontario. What would you have to see in that budget for you to support it? What do you think you would like to see in that budget?
Well, there's a couple of different things as we look towards what we now call a window of possible election. And this happened last year and it happened the year before around the budget because it is a confidence motion. And what we've done is we've taken our time over the last couple of months, frankly, since around Christmas time, to reflect on what the government has achieved, whether the promises that they've committed to in the last couple of budgets have actually been followed through upon, whether people are realizing the kinds of change that the government keeps promising. So we're listening to Ontarians about that first and foremost, about how they're feeling about whether or not this government has followed through on its promises. Having said that, we're also setting out the priorities that we still think people have. I mean, when we engage with people, whether it's through the internet, whether it's in person in constituency offices with our MPPs, whether it's town hall meetings, general discussions, we're still trying to get a sense, and we're still obligated, I think, not even trying to get a sense, we're obligated to understand what it is that Ontarians want, what are their priorities. And we've been putting those priorities forward for the government to look at. So, for example, we know people can't make ends meet. It's difficult at the best, difficult to pay the bills at the end of the month. And we see the hydro rates going through the roof. And so what we've said is one of the priorities we hear loud and clear from the people of this province is they want us to clean up the mess in our hydro system. And as we do that, as we clean up that mess, we have to pass the savings on to them. They're the ones that should be feeling some relief from changes in the hydro system. And we've identified a couple of ways that we would like to do that. And so that's a priority. Another priority is good jobs
and that
for
would
folks.
Be things like the HST?
It would be things like taking the 4 different agencies, for example, that exist in the electricity system and collapsing them. That way you get rid of a number of CEO salaries, a number of top executive salaries. That's one piece. Savings will be found there. Those get passed on to consumers. The other thing, or ratepayers. The other thing that we've seen is we basically produce hydro in this province at a certain cost, and then we sell it at cut rate prices when we have excess to places like New York. And so we're subsidizing the lighting up of the Manhattan skyline, frankly, and that's just not good enough. And so what happens is it's a bit complicated, but basically our hydro gets sold off by whoever's generating the hydro at spot market prices. We think that we can do better. In Quebec and in Manitoba, they're selling hydro for almost double what we sell it because they have more control over the market. So they have more control over when they put their electricity on the market and to whom they sell. Longer term contracts and those kinds of things. And so one of the things we want to do is be more involved in the marketing. The province should be more involved in the marketing of our electricity to get us a better price. And as we get better price, that creates opportunity to pass savings on to consumers as well. So these problems are not, they're not simple problems, but they're worth taking the time to figure out how we can make a bit of a difference and get some of those savings passed on. New Democrats don't believe that it's inevitable for us to have 42% increase in electricity rates over the next couple of years. That's what the Liberals say is necessary, but we don't think so. And we think that that's the lazy way to do it. And we think that we can be active in trying to make a change to bring savings and better pricing to Ontarians.
Now, I know that there's been some some language that you've used in speeches around taxes and tax credits. Can you explain to us your stance on both of those items?
Sure, and that's actually another one of our priorities, and it's the issue around jobs. I mean, for the last number of years, and I would say decades, frankly, conservatives and liberals alike believe or have believed and have implemented across-the-board tax reductions for the corporate sector. So corporate tax cuts. We have seen, and they always say corporate tax cuts are going to create jobs. Well, we haven't seen those jobs. I mean, corporate taxes went down from 14% to down to 11.5% over the last couple of years. 2 years ago, we froze the corporate tax rate. That was one of the conditions of us approving that budget with Mr. McGuinty and Mr. Duncan back in 2012. We froze the reductions because we weren't seeing the results. Why do the same thing over and over and over if you're not getting the results that you desire? So with reduction of corporate tax rates, we didn't see more jobs, and we didn't see investment into Ontario. We have the very, very stagnant productivity investment in this province. We look at other provinces, and they're doing much better. Manitoba, for example, they stopped reducing their corporate tax rate as well, and they started implementing tax credits. So you actually reward the companies that are hiring people with tax credits. If what we want is jobs and what we want is investment, then what we should be doing is setting tax policies that incentivize those kinds of things. So instead of giving an across-the-board corporate tax cut, for those companies that are hiring new workers, we're providing, or we want to provide, a 10% tax credit for the salary for a year. So a new employee gets hired, you get a break on that employee's salary by a 10% tax credit offered by the government, and that tax credit then equals to about up to a maximum of about $5,000, and each company can only access up to $100,000 of that program. Why? Because we want to make sure it's available for small businesses, for medium-sized businesses, and for bigger businesses as well. So we wouldn't want one huge corporation coming in and taking up all of the capacity of that program by not having any limits. And so this way, we're actually saying to employers, we want to partner with you. We want to work with you to try to help you grow your business and help you have a better presence in Ontario and help you create jobs. And so we're going to help by giving you a tax credit for job creation. And so we also have a similar idea when it comes to investment. And in fact, Manitoba has an investment tax credit, I was starting to say. And what they have found is that by switching to a tax credit system, it has infused more investment into their province. As people invest in new plant, new machinery, new technology, they get refundable tax credits from the Manitoba government, and that province has the highest rate of productivity investment in Canada, higher than the national rate and higher than Ontario's rate. And so that says to me, let's look at things that are working in other jurisdictions. Let's not keep going down the same status quo path that's not getting us the results we want, and switch to other ideas that actually are working in other places. And we're not reinventing the wheel, not based on ideology, but based on what's really working in the real world in other places.
So in your time in the legislature over the last while, what would you say your achievements are to date?
Well, I mean, we feel pretty happy about some of the things we were able to achieve for Ontarians. I mean, particularly the commitment around auto insurance reductions. We're hearing from folks that they're not really seeing those reductions. It's one of our concerns, in fact, that the government made the promise, but we're not seeing the results. But certainly that commitment to get auto insurance rates down. Again, this is about the fact that people can't afford daily life and they need a break. And so one of those breaks is auto insurance. We've managed to, in the 2 budgets ago, shore up the childcare system, which was really starting to fall apart. We got some significant investment, over $240 million in the childcare system. We were able to add some extra support to hospitals and smaller communities in rural Ontario. We've been, really pushing this government to try to make the kinds of differences that matter in people's lives. One of the big things that we heard last year is people were really concerned about the waste, about the scandal, about the misuse of tax dollars. So we forced the government to put in place a Financial Accountability Office, which is an office that will stop the scandals from happening. Basically, this office, it enables a third party, unbiased party, to look at government promises for new plans and new spending, and give a real costing of what those plans are. Instead of the government spin, the political spin, or the
where
Enron
figures
accounting.
announce it goes higher.
Exactly. This gives us the real goods, if you will, in terms of the price, which is important. I mean, people's tax dollars are precious, and they're very frustrated. If there's one thing we know for sure, they're frustrated with the lack of respect for the tax dollar. So we're very we're pleased about that. So there's a number of different things. We were able to put the youth jobs program in place. I mean, this is something that I've identified for years now, and of course it's been talked about a lot in the media, that young people are without work. I mean, we have young people who are in their 20s who haven't had a full-time job yet. We have people in their mid-20s, late 20s, finished college, finished university, sometimes finished both, and still aren't able to find a job in their career path. And so we saw this as problematic, not only because it's something that financially really puts these young people behind the 8 ball, so that their life earnings over time are going to be significantly reduced because they can't get into a decent paying job or a job in their career path early on. So that's a problem. But I mean, think about the well-being of those young people overall. I mean, how do you get up every morning and keep looking for work if every time you turn around there's a door shut in your face? I mean, just the mental health, the stress, the anxiety, the blow to the ego, if you will, that is not healthy for young people. It's not healthy for their outlook on life, and we need to do everything we can to support them and to give them a chance. So the Youth Jobs Program is something that we're very, very proud of, that we got the government to implement in the last budget. So those are kinds of things that are for us important. It really should all be about making life better for Ontarians, finding the ways, and sometimes they're simple ideas, they're practical, they're pragmatic, but they make a difference, and that's what it's all about.
Wonderful. Well, my last question will be the tough one.
Okay.
So if I was going to take the family to Hamilton this weekend, what should I see?
Oh my goodness, there's so much great things to see in Hamilton. But in the summer it's good as well. We have a wonderful waterfront in Hamilton, so there's a couple of great parks down there, Bayfront Park and a waterfront trail. It's fantastic. But in the wintertime, there's great things too. We have a fantastic kind of arts and cultural scene happening on James Street North, which is really wonderful. We have a fantastic art gallery. You might not know that. It's actually the anniversary of the art gallery this year, and so they're doing a number of different wonderful installations. Our downtown is becoming more and more vibrant. Mm-hmm. We have I think hundreds of waterfalls in Hamilton. We have a number.
That is true. Actually,
yes.
I went for a hike there and I heard that. Yeah.
So we have the Bruce Trail runs through Hamilton. Yes. It's lots of trails and hiking, and it's a wonderful city. It's really quite great.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sitting with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Welcome back to Crossroads on TVI. Let's meet our next guest. Kira Ratnam is a Tamil-Canadian visual artist. She's also a teacher at Arivakam Canada, where she teaches drawing, painting, and crafts to students from grades 1 to 12. Very busy woman. Mm-hmm. She has donated her artwork to various organizations, obviously a passion of hers. Here's actually a neat little tidbit. Her biggest donation was to NCCT, and a painting that apparently displayed a lost child in a war zone. Get this, the painting named Behind the Barbed Wire sold for $4,000. And here she is with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So how long have we been trying to do this? Like, I've wanted to interview you for a long time. You're busy. And finally, I'm so glad that you can make it. So what was it like for you to have this one particular piece sell for so much?
I was actually very shocked. I didn't think it would sell for that much. And I was kind of scared because it was, not a lot of people would actually want to have, paintings of war in their house or even at their office. So I was like wondering, would this sell? I donated to them. Would this actually benefit them? But then I actually left the event like 3-4 hours ahead. So then they just called me and they're like, oh my God, your painting was sold for like $4,000. And I was like, what? I'm like, you guys are kidding me. And then after I think I get like 6, 7 text messages from all my friends who were there, and then people from Marivaham. So everybody was like texting me. They're like, "Oh my God, it's 4,000," and I was like, "What?" And then I looked through because I wasn't actually following. So I just saw the last message that said, "Oh, your painting was sold for 4,000." But then when I go scroll up, it's like, "Oh, it says 1,000. Now it's 120."
Oh, so you got the live
yeah.
update.
So everybody's like updating me, and I'm like, "What are they talking about?" So it was something, you know.
Describe that painting. Like, what was in that painting?
It was a boy. He was peeking through the barbed wire. So what I tried to like describe in that painting or try to portray was like a lot of children, they're really innocent. So like the Tamil community itself, during the genocide, you know, they're innocent people, they're civilians, they did no harm, but harm was done to them. So it's like the boy was looking out and asking, you know, like, am I going to be in here the rest of my life? Is there hope? Is there a safer place outside? So that's the whole thing about the painting. But I don't know, like, and another reason why I painted that is because to raise a question for a lot of other children, because they really don't know how barbed wire looks like. They don't know how a concentration camp looks like. And there was a time when I used that painting to get all these other people, all these like little children to
be informed, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I actually use it as an exhibit. So I would upload them on my page or on Facebook, and then I'll let all these little kids look at it, and I'll be like, so this is what's happening. And they'll be like, what's barbed wire? What is that? Why is he standing there? Why is he crying? Why does he look like that? So that was my main focus.
So it's exactly what I think I've heard from people describe you doing, which is that you use art to transmit certain messages, right? So tell me about what inspires. Like, what inspires pieces for you? What inspires you to go and paint something?
Every single piece that I do, I think it has a connection towards, like, it has a connection towards me and, like, what I've lost. Like, I've lost a lot of family. And
I'm guessing you mean family with the issues that have gone on in Sri Lanka?
Yes. So I've lost family back home. So when I do paint stuff that is related to genocide or lost or humanitarian stuff, that's 100% connected to me. But then when I do paint something that is a bit more happier, or sometimes I would paint some things that actually would question me, like, oh, why am I not, you know, like thinking this as like something that's important. An instance will be, I think, when I relate to the South Asian Autism Center, I did, my donation was a mural. So I went there and I asked them.
And that's across their wall, isn't it?
Yeah.
At their new offices? Yeah.
So they're like, how, okay, we want this place to be like home. So then I asked them what type of people come there. So they're like, okay, we have a lot of autistic kids, and they're very talented, and their parents bring them here because they hope for like a new beginning for them. So when I usually get inspired by the people that I'm actually painting for, like the tiny little bits and pieces about them. So that room in particular was all about these children, like why they come there. So if you see the picture, it would be like a little girl blowing wishes, those dandelion wishes. So they blow it, and when you're a child, you think that like when you blow that, your wishes will come true because it drifts off into the sky. So that was my concept. And then these little wishes were actually the donors, the people who works there. So I think that's where I get my inspiration from whoever that orders or wants me to do some kind of artwork for them. They would be my inspiration, what they do or what they want to help in the community.
And what they love and what they have to offer. Now, how have you trained yourself in this? In order to like do art, have you taken classes? Have you?
I was in a gifted program in high school, but after that, I really didn't study
so you're
art.
Self-taught.
Yeah, but I did realize that my art teacher, he'd always tell us that we are our own teachers, so we know like what we're good at and what we're not good at. So he'd be like, whatever you can't do today, try that tomorrow, practice it until like you become an expert at it. So that's what I kept doing. Like I can't color with pencil crayons, but I still try that.
Just to challenge yourself.
Yeah, just to challenge myself. Like I really can't color with pencil crayons. Like it would really like hurt me. So I would always stick to watercolor. But now I've tried to use different mediums, different techniques, things that I'm not actually comfortable with. even if it looks sloppy and messy, like I try to use it so like I get better at it.
So what are the different mediums that you work in right now?
I use watercolor, acrylic, oil, chalk pastel, oil pastel.
And you also told me something when we were speaking earlier, that you're creating your own new, tell me about that, because I know that our audience is going to be interested.
I use fruit juice, so pomegranate juice.
And when you said fruit juice, I said, what do you mean?
Beet juice, because the color was really rich and I couldn't find that type of color in watercolor. So I try to mix, like, you know, because paint, when you do buy it at the store, they'd only have like one pink, one red. There are sometimes like they'll come in different shades, but I wanted that particular color. So then I was like, okay, you know, I was eating a fruit and I was like, oh, you know, the dye came on my hand and I was like, oh, this residue color is so nice. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll put it on paper. And then I actually liked it. So I ended up painting with, you know, sometimes I use tea bags. So I try to like experiment.
Interesting. Is there a particular piece that you've done that has meant the most to you?
There is. I think that was like my first painting that actually brought me out to everyone as Kira Ratnam. It was a huge heart with a print of Tamilulam, like the outline of Tamilulam inside the heart. And I guess that's the only painting that I will never sell. I will never give to anyone. I won't even let anyone touch it. I think it has like some kind of connection to me. It's not only because of, you know, my identity and whatever. It's more like I spend so much time working on it. When I started the painting, I was in Canada, and then I didn't get to finish it on time. It was for an event, and I went back home. So I went back home, and I learned new things. I met new people. I met survivors. I heard stories, and then I came back, and then I started painting. So then I just drew it and I went back home. I came back and I painted it. And then I got motivated to start, you know, Waves of Color, start doing all these exhibits and everything and to try to educate people. So I think that was like my first biggest piece. I did do other pieces, but
it was like that.
That was the most important piece.
It was almost an educational piece for you. So what is Waves of Color, by the way?
Waves of Color was, it was just to create a platform for me to like push myself, because I realize that when people do look at my artwork, I get motivated to paint more, and when people do learn something from it, like I feel more, I don't know, I feel like I reached my goal. So I created Waves of Color for people that like art, or people that would want to see more art or want to learn about our Tamil culture.
And this is the Facebook page.
Yes.
You can go to Facebook and you put in Waves of Color.
Yeah, you can actually Google it.
Okay.
So you can Google it and it'll come, like the link will come. And I named it Waves of Color because it was supposed to be spectrum, but because, you know, it's the color of the colors of the rainbow, sorry. But then I realized that water kind of spreads more quicker. So I was like, okay, there's waves and then there's color, because I don't want to just focus on Canada. I want to reach out to people from different countries. I do have fans from Australia, all over Europe, and then a few from India. So that's the whole purpose of the Waves of Color.
Signifying like the way that your art kind of can go out to people. Interesting. So we chatted about this earlier, because I've been meaning to ask you this for the longest time. What do you think the perception are of artists in our community?
I think it changed.
What was it before?
Before it was like, oh, you're an artist. Okay, you draw nice, you know. That's all they would say. But then if you'd say, okay, you know, I want to be an artist, or I want to go to art school, it's like, what can you do with that? Can you make money? You know, is it going to get you anywhere? Can you pay your mortgage with that? Like, those are the questions that people would ask you. And it was like, people would say, okay, yeah, you can do that part-time, but that's not your occupation. You can't do that full-time. You can't achieve anything from it. Now people are like, oh, wow, you know, like they're putting aside the fact that they need a job that pays well. And then they kind of realize that it's not just about like, you know, you making something out of it. It's more like what you can give. So a lot of people come and they'll actually talk to me about it. They'll be like, oh, you know, I saw your painting. It made me feel like this. Some people would come up to me and be like, oh, you know, you painted palm trees. I felt like I was back home. Like stuff like that. They're able to connect better now than they were like a decade ago.
Interesting. So do you think that that's even changing more these days? Like how do you think, yeah, I mean, you must meet other young artists, right? What do you tell them?
I tell them not to be afraid, because I think a lot of people are afraid that, oh, if I paint this and nobody would like it, then nobody would notice me as an artist. Like, that's what a lot of artists struggle with. Like, your artwork doesn't get known. So, but I think now it's a little bit better, because I've seen a lot of artists come out. Even
in
like,
the community?
Yes, even my students, like my students, they'll be like, oh, I'll be like, oh, there's an exhibit. Do you guys want to put your paintings in? They'll be like, yeah, sure, you know. Before it wasn't like that. Before, if I'd ask my friends, you know, there's this exhibit, this organization is doing it. Would you like to put a piece in? They'll be like, no, no one's going to look at it. No one would care. Now it's just like, yeah, I want to do that. I want, you know, people to know that I have this talent. I want to come out with it. Or they'll come and they'll be like, can you help me? Can you make me better? Can you give me tips? Like, now I think everybody's more comfortable because they're actually being accepted in the community for being an artist, not just for drawing, but also dance and music and everything. So as everything comes out, I think everybody's feeling more comfortable.
They feel like they can, oh, that's right, because it's not just painting, but you have people who are dance who think that, or people who even play music that go through the same thing, right? So what would your advice be to people, to young people? Like specific people that are contemplating, you know, the life of an artist. What would you say?
I would say if you really, really, really love what you do, then you should never give it up. Because I think after high school, throughout my 4 years of university, I really didn't do any pieces. I didn't draw much. I maybe like, you know.
But you were at University of Toronto. You were in a very busy program. Yeah.
But no, but I could have taken art, right? But I didn't, because I was like, okay, you know, like I'm not going to draw anymore. I thought like I'm going to go and get a job at some office and just work 9 to 5 and not have any time. And that's what I was imagining. But then I realized that I wasn't actually happy. Like, I couldn't handle my stress, and my stress was relieved when I paint.
From this outlet. Yeah.
So, like, if you really, really like something, no matter what it is, it can be drawing, it can be dancing, it can be singing, just don't let, like, I would advise everyone to find their talent and just keep it with you, because that's the thing that makes you live. Like, it gives me a purpose. Like, yes, I have my own job, you know, I work for something else, I make money out of something else, but this gives me life. Like, it's some kind of medicine for your soul, kind of. Like, that's what I feel. So you should never, like, abandon it.
Give it up. And this might be the reason that Kumuk magazine, online magazine, you know, chose you as one of the Canadian Tamil Women of Change. What did that mean to you?
It kind of felt nice, because, you know, like, I think being accepted in my community, and I actually, I think throughout high school and university, I'd always want, like, if somebody says, like, oh, you're a great artist, like, the fact that someone's calling me an artist, it would mean so much. Like, and then now, like, a lot of people come, like, oh, you're the artist. I was like, yes, I'm the artist. Like, it's, I don't know, like, it's worth more.
Welcome back to Crossroads on TVI. This is an exciting moment. I've wanted to interview this young lady for a while now. Our next guest is the author of a newly published children's book. Trista Absalom has written a book called We Are More Alike Than We Are Different. It's beautiful. It aims to educate parents and children about others with disabilities. She's an avid volunteer with Community Living, and she's a month away from finishing her studies as an education assistant and hopes to continue working with children with special needs. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is lovely. So, I mean, what made you write this book? What inspired it?
I want to teach most of the Tamil community, but everybody else, about disability kids, and I want to teach them that even though with the disability of blind, deaf, and can't speak, you are exactly like everybody else. There's no difference after all. And my inspiration of the main character in the story was when I went to Sri Lanka 2 years ago. There was a little girl who was 6 at that time. She was blind, deaf, and can't speak, and I was just blown away by her. Like, just looking at her just made me, I needed to do something for her.
Mm-hmm. So she's what inspired the main character in this book. Okay. So tell us a little bit more about the book. What can we expect to see in it?
In the book, it's a coloring book, storybook. So kids who buy my book, they get to color the pictures of how they think the little girl in the book looks like. So it's their friend. And it's basically her day-to-day schedule. She's teaching kids that even though she can't see anything or hear anything, she can still be a regular child. She brushes her teeth by herself, she can eat by herself, she can do everything just like a regular child can do.
Now, you do a lot of work with children with special needs, children with disabilities. You know, what are some of the challenges that you think you see them facing?
Right now, I'm volunteering at Community Living, and I'm working with about 10 kids. 6 of them are nonverbal, so it's very hard for us to communicate with them and to see them, when they're in pain or when they need something, they don't know how to ask us. And it's very devastating to see that, we can't do anything. Even using iPads and picture images to show them, which one are you looking at, they don't know how to point to it because they don't know what to do. And that's what I think their difficulties and ours is as well.
And do you think there's any sort of stigmas they face in the community? I mean, I'm sure that you've run across that even in the Tamil Canadian community. Like, do you think there are any stigmas they face, how people see them?
When it comes to stigmas, not only just the people seeing them, but parents isolating them is probably, I'm going to say, the main problem here right now. If there's
That's
a
really
child,
interesting. Okay.
If there's a child with autism, and autistic kids are loud, noisy, they don't know how to, they don't know what silence means. Parents keep them in their house because they don't want to be embarrassed by the child. But I would say that take them to the library, teach them. You have to be quiet in the library. There's books to read. You have to be quiet so people can listen. You're teaching the kids that even when you're outside, this is the rules that you need to face, and this will teach the child later on in their life. Yes, you need to be quiet at these places so they understand it, because the more you isolate them, they're never going to learn what they need to do.
Now, obviously, you do all of this work, but you wrote this book for a purpose. You were trying to achieve something with it, right? What was that?
My achievement was mainly the main character. I have her on my Facebook everywhere, and people they feel guilty for her. They feel pity for her. They're like, I feel sorry for her. But they don't understand that when you feel sorry for a child, don't feel pity for them. Do something for them. Be the change. Make a change in a child's life. And that's my main purpose of this book.
That's the main message that you want to deliver. Yes. So now, where can people get this book? I hear it's available on Amazon already.
It is on Amazon, also on Facebook. If you type in the title, We Are More Alike Than We Are Different, there's a Facebook page. There's all the details on there as well. And it tells you on Amazon how to get to the link and where to purchase it.
And you have the funds from this going to something. Tell us about that.
Yes. So for the summer, I want to build a wheelchair swing for children who are physical disabilities or on wheelchairs in my area, and process more and keep going furthermore with that. And the swing is for a child, because when there's children on wheelchairs, or even adults for that matter, we can't lift them and put them on the swing. It's very difficult. So building a wheelchair swing, they get to use their wheelchair, have physical mobility, go on the wheelchair, and then they get to swing all by themselves without any assistance needed.
Amazing. And that's where the funds will be going.
Definitely.
What area of the GTA would that, or outside the GTA?
It's in Georgetown, Ontario.
Okay.
And I want to keep going from the Halton Hills area. I want to grow it more and more, and then maybe Toronto will be my last.
So maybe this is not just your first book.
It's not.
Okay, good. That's good to know. And I know that you have a launch coming up, so tell us about the launch.
I do. We haven't decided a date yet. It's going to be after April for sure. Like I said, the more details are all on Facebook. If you go on to We Are More Alike Than We Are Different on Facebook, every updates will be on there, and the launch date will be up hopefully in 2 weeks.
And is it open to the public, the launch itself?
It definitely is. Anyone can come and you can purchase a book, and I will be explaining about my book there as well, and where these proceeds will be going to.
Okay, so now I have a difficult question for you, right? You are 22, right? And some would say that is young. I think it's young. You know, it's rare to meet a 22-year-old that has decided to write a book and then gotten it published. I'm trying to figure out what prompted you to do the book. I'm not talking about the inspiration being helping people with disabilities, but at what point did you think, I'm going to do a book, and then what made it happen?
To be honest, I don't know either. Okay. But December, I was talking to my professors, and I have a professor who she's my inspiration. And she tells me, be the change. That's her quote all the time for everything I send her. And she always says, make a difference in a child's life. Just don't go into volunteering, works, but do something for the society. And I'm like, I can't, do anything famous or do a movie or anything. But I'm like, why don't I just write a small book and see if people can open up to it? And December, I started my book, and now it's out.
That's amazing. And were there people that helped you get it done?
There was. There's a lady named Deborah Rue. She's in America, and she's my other inspiration, actually. But she helped me in inspiring me to write the book. I emailed her asking, what are the procedures of writing a book? Because writing a book is not easy, for sure. And she told me, write your story, let me know what you think, and then I sent it to her, and it's out.
So you've been talking about being an education assistant as well. Tell me about that work. I mean, you're obviously done in April. What do you plan to do after?
So education assistant is for any school boards, and you're helping children with disability. My passion is working in a school board, but I want to do more than school boards. I want to be in a lot of programs, I want to work with most of the Tamil community. That's my goal. I'm planning to tutor kids who have speech impairments. So I have a lot of things I want to do, but school boards are my #1 priority, but I would like to work more with not with just one child, but a variety of them, so I can learn myself on how to help children with disability.
Now, most people who watch this would say that you are successful. I certainly feel that. And you've given us one piece of advice, which is be the change that you can be. Is there any others that you want to share with young women, especially out there, who are trying to get somewhere in life?
If I had to say that, it would mostly be, if you have a child with disability or you know anyone with disability, don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed about them. Do something for them. Because, you walk down the street to a park, you see a child, crying or screaming, and you can tell they have a disability. Don't ignore that child. Go to them or go to the parents and say, oh, what's going on with your child? Like, what can we do? Think of some programs. Help them out so that the more they get the help, the more better they'll be when they grow up.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. And thank you for finally we get a chance to chat and do this. And hopefully you'll come back again. And we will let our audience know when your launch comes up.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And gosh, I always leave this show inspired by people. And I'm going to say a couple more words. Here are our final thoughts for today. Tamil Heritage Month in Ontario is now a reality. This is a really big deal. The team at CrossRoads would like to pass on our congratulations to the very many people who worked on making it happen, and look forward to celebrating with the rest of the community in January next year. I'm very grateful to all of our wonderful guests that have joined us today, and thank you all for joining us. You've been watching CrossRoads on TVI with Manjula Salvaraja. Have a wonderful week.
தமிழரின் பிம்பம் உங்கள் டிவி.